It's October 11th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dani. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the Nobel Prize winner in literature, Han Kang. South Korean author Han Kang has won the Nobel Prize in Literature, the first South Korean to be honored with the award. Han showed gratitude to fellow novelists who inspired her. In their first ever in-person talks in Laos on Thursday, President Yoon and the new Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba agreed on the need to continue bolstering Seoul-Tokyo relations, with their mutual commitment to address North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. And as we are speaking, South Korea's central bank has gone ahead with its first rate cut in more than 3 years, lowering the benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to 3.25%.
The Nobel Prize in Literature for 2024 is awarded to South Korean author Han Kang.
The Nobel Prize in Literature for 2024 has been awarded to the South Korean novelist Han Kang. The triumph makes her the first Asian female to win the prize, and just the second South Korean Nobel laureate after former President Kim Dae-jung, who won the Peace Prize in 2000. Lee Seung-jae reports.
South Korean author Han Kang has been named the 2024 Nobel Prize winner in literature.
The Nobel Prize in Literature for 2024 is awarded to South Korean author Han Kang for her intense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life.
Nobel Committee member Anders Olsen praised her work, saying that Han has a unique awareness of the connections between body and soul, the living and the dead, adding that her poetic experimental style has become an innovator in contemporary prose. The 53-year-old becomes the first female Asian to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, and just the second South Korean to become a Nobel laureate. Former South Korean President Kim Dae-jung was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2000. During a foreign interview with the Nobel Prize Committee upon hearing the news, Han said she was so surprised and honored. She added that all the books she has read since childhood have been a source of inspiration for her. When asked to recommend a work of hers to first-time readers, she chose her most recent novel, We Do Not Part, as well as Human Acts. The South Korean author first garnered international fame after winning the Man Booker International Prize for Fiction in 2016 for her novel, The Vegetarian. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And authors, readers, and fans from around the world are celebrating Han Kang's win, praising her ability to empathize with the vulnerable in society. Our Lee Si-hoo tells us more.
An innovator in contemporary prose. This is how the Swedish Academy described author Han Kang, the winner of the 2024 Nobel Prize in Literature. And Han Kang's intense poetic prose that confronts historical traumas and exposes the fragility of human life is being celebrated around the globe. The chair of the Nobel Committee for Literature, Anders Olsen, praised Han, saying her empathy for vulnerable, often female lives is palpable. The New York Times quoted Paige Anya Morris, the co-translator of Han's novel, We Do Not Part, who said that her groundbreaking work has reshaped the literary landscape in South Korea. Morris said Han Kang has braved a culture of censorship and saving face, and she has come out of these attempts at silencing her with stronger, more unflinching work each time. Novelist Deborah Levy told The Guardian that Han Kang is one of the most profound and skilled writers working on the contemporary world stage. Novelist Max Porter, who edited the translation of Han Kang's novel The Vegetarian, showed excitement at the recognition, saying new readers will discover and be changed by her miraculous work. For those yet familiar with Han Kang's work, CNN highlighted the Nobel Committee member Anna Karen Palm's recommendation to begin with Han's 2014 novel Human Acts, which reflects on the 1980 Gwangju uprising, when more than 100 civilians were killed during pro-democracy demonstrations. Palm says that Han's very tender, precise prose in itself almost becomes a counterforce to the brutal noisiness of power. Readers and media outlets from nearby Japan too praised the first win by a female Asian writer.
Recently, it's mostly been European authors winning the prize, so I was really happy to see Asian writers being recognized.
Kyodo News reported that Han Kang's works highlight the stance of the scarred who silently resist the social oppression. NHK also highlighted that Han Kang's many works have been translated in Japanese and are widely popular in the country. 이시후, Arirang News.
Not only is she the first Korean novelist to win the prestigious award in literature, but such splendid achievement also marks a great milestone in Korean literature. What does Thursday's honor mean for Korean literature? Let's turn to Professor David Tazart for more. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be here on this day of celebration.
It's good to have you with us. This is more than just Han becoming the first South Korean winner of the prize in literature, right?
It is more than that, because there've been talk about this for a long time, from Hwang Young-sok, from Goon, the poet. This is something that Korean people have looked to for that acknowledgement of their literature. But we must say that this award, in your previous segments, you've talked about responses from other authors and the international response. But this news just rippled through South Korean society yesterday. Such a wave of emotion, because nobody predicted Han Kang's victory for the Nobel Prize of Literature. Social media was just inundated with joy and celebration. And as a professor at a women's university here in Seoul, my social media, my Instagram stories were filled with lots of young women who just felt seen, who felt proud, and of course the whole nation does. But this is a huge victory, not just for South Korea, for South Korean literature, but for many people inside society.
Well, we all know how prestigious a Nobel Prize is, but Professor Tazart, tell us, how big of a deal is this really, winning the prize in literature?
It turns the spotlight onto South Korea once more, which is very important. And how big a deal is it? Well, there's a financial prize that means that Han Kang will now be able to continue her work, knowing that she has that financial support. It will obviously draw so many more readers to her. And as they do, when they encounter Han Kang's work, they're going to read about the tragedy of Gwangju in 1980. They're going to learn about the Jeju uprising from her upcoming book, which will be translated into English in the late 1940s. They will learn about the life of a woman struggling in society to choose her own path through the vegetarian. So more and more people around the world, they're going to be introduced to Han Kang through this prize. They're going to be introduced to Korean literature more broadly, which is very deep and wide. And then they're going to learn more about the Korean story. And this, I think, is a wonderful thing, that now the Korean story is being not only communicated to the world, but it's being communicated by people like Han Kang, who has such a wonderful voice in that she addresses these very incredible moments of power and tragedy and devastation, but she does so with such grace.
Right, the honor could have come as a pleasant surprise, like Han said herself, but, her work has already long been recognized and praised both at home and abroad. Let's talk about that.
Yep. So the 2016, I believe it was, the Man Booker Prize for The Vegetarian, that drew a lot of attention to her, and rightly so. It's a wonderful sort of magical realist exploration of a woman in South Korea who decides to give up eating meat and all the repercussions that come from that, with maybe what locals might call nameshison, or the public gaze and social expectations. Han Kang has been writing for 30 years. Although she's in her 50s, to win the award at this age, she was considered quite young. And on the list of potential winners this year, she was not even on the list. You had Gerald Murnane from Australia, Kan Zhu, the Chinese experimental writer. She was highly tipped even just a few days ago.
Indeed.
But Han Kang has sort of come out of nowhere to win this award. But let's not fool ourselves that this is all of a sudden she's risen up. She's been writing for 30 years. She's well known in literary circles, and this seems like a well-deserved recognition for the many years that she's put pen to paper for us all.
Right. Some people say it was just a matter of time that she was going to be recognized this much globally. And you mentioned this, Professor Tizar, it's a huge milestone for Korean literature. But what does Han's achievement on Thursday really say about Korean literature and its status at the moment?
It shows that there is an incredible attention in knowing more about Korea. So we had the rise of K-pop, we had the rise of Korean movies, and Korean dramas are seemingly omnipresent across global media. But now people want to know more. They want to know something deeper. I've had publishers reach out to me from the United Kingdom and say, David, who are the authors that we should be publishing, Korean authors that we should be publishing that people don't know about yet? So I think this exploration of Korean literature, it reflects a deeper interest in Korea. It shows that this sort of Hallyu boom that we had is not just all about pop music and glitz and glamour, but there's a deeper, more profound interest in the stories that Korean people have to tell. And when they do engage with Korean literature, they're going to find so much there, because it's as wide and various as you can imagine. And there's so much depth. And I'm actually excited for people around the world as they start to not only pick up Han Kang's books, but pick up other Korean books, and more importantly, just pick up books in general. It's
Right.
great to be talking about literature in the modern age.
Definitely. K-pop, K-food, and she's really paved the way for K-literature, maybe. Professor Tizar, thank you so much for making your time to be with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
You too. And in addition to Han Kang, Korean-American author Juhea Kim won this year's Yasnaya Polyana Literary Award, Russia's biggest annual prize in literature. 37-year-old Kim won the prize awarded by the Tolstoy East Museum for her debut novel, Bits of a Little Land, on Thursday. The novel tells a generational story that begins in the early 20th century Korea, taking the readers through the life of the characters through to the mid-1960s. The novel was also a finalist for the Dayton Literary Peace Prize in 2022. It's day 2 of President Yoon Suk-yeol's trip to Laos as he attends the ASEAN-related summit, where all eyes were on his first one-on-one with the new Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the full story.
The leaders of South Korea and Japan have agreed to continue improving bilateral relations as they jointly address North Korea's nuclear and missile threat and co-develop cutting-edge technologies. This comes as President Yoon Suk-yeol held his first summit with Japan's new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba on the sidelines of the ASEAN-related summit in Laos. The meeting took place just 9 days after Ishiba's inauguration. In a promising start to the historically volatile relationship, the two leaders reiterated their commitment to continue strengthening bilateral ties.
특히 다가오는 2025년은 한일 국교 정상화 60주년을 맞이하는 해입니다. 양국 관계의 희망찬 미래상을 제시하고 양국 국민들이 양국 관계 도약을 체감할 수 있도록 총리님과 긴밀하게 협력해 나갔으면 합니다.
Yoon in 2023 reached out to Tokyo to overcome historical sticking points that soured their ties for decades over Japan's imperial atrocities such as sexual enslavement and forced labor. In the months following, he and former Prime Minister Kishida made frequent visits to each other's countries with the aim of building a partnership that looks toward the future. Yoon and Ishiba have agreed to continue cooperating closely from the top level in their so-called shuttle exchanges.
I intend to carry on and further develop the greatly improved relations between our two countries, which was strengthened by former Prime Minister Kishida and yourself. I also hope to make good use of shuttle diplomacy and work closely with you, President Yoon.
Addressing their foremost security concerns, the two leaders agreed during the summit to jointly respond to North Korea's provocations and blasted the regime's illegal military cooperation with Russia. They pledged to continue sharing real-time missile warning information with the United States and lead global efforts to send a strong message to the North.
The leaders agreed that these threats are not limited to Northeast Asia, but also pose a threat to peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region and globally. They also concurred that the responsibility for escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula should not be shifted onto South Korea, Japan, or their trilateral cooperation with the US.
On economic cooperation, the leaders committed to strengthening collaboration in cutting-edge technology, including in hydrogen and ammonia, as well as quantum research. Also, Yoon and Ishiba agreed to work together towards enhancing their trilateral framework of cooperation with the United States. Leaders of the three countries last year agreed at Camp David to jointly deter North Korea's security threat, address regional challenges, and cooperate in strategic areas such as economic security, supply chains, health, AI, and quantum computing. However, the future of the three-way cooperation was not discussed in detail during Thursday's summit, ahead of the US presidential election next month. According to a Yoon official, the timing for such talks and efforts to organize the annual Trilateral Leaders Summit would have to take place after the November race and Japan's early general election this month. In the meantime, Yoon and Ishiba identified the need for further cooperation between Seoul and Tokyo on regional and global issues, and decided to expand the scope of collaboration in multilateral settings, such as the United Nations and the G20. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea and Laos have agreed to establish a comprehensive partnership to mark the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations next year, inking key agreements on climate change and development projects. This came as President Yoon Suk-yeol held a series of bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the ASEAN-related summit. With Laos, the host of this year's annual regional summit, Yoon and Lao President Thongloun Sisoulith oversaw the signing of three key agreements on bilateral cooperation on responding to climate change and granting low interest rates for development projects. President Yoon also met with Thailand's new Prime Minister Setta Thavisin to discuss trade, investment and clean energy cooperation, and held talks with Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh to discuss enhancing strategic, future-oriented cooperation as comprehensive strategic partners. The South Korean leader is also scheduled to meet the leaders of Canada and Australia during his time in Vientiane. And he is set to wrap up his 60th trip to Southeast Asia, but with one big event left at ASEAN, the East Asia Summit. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol's Southeast Asia tour is coming to an end, but there's one important final stage on Friday before he departs for Seoul, the East Asia Summit. This summit, with 18 leaders joining from the Indo-Pacific region, will also have the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov in attendance. President Yoon, according to the top office during the pre-trip briefing, will take this opportunity to declare willingness to take on a responsible role and contribute to safeguarding the rules-based regional order as a global pivotal state, while also promoting his August 15 Unification Doctrine to other leaders and asking for support. The August 15 Unification Doctrine is Yoon's push for the resumption of peaceful dialogue with North Korea with a goal of reunification based on liberal democracy. This comes as President Yoon started ASEAN summit engagements on Thursday, beginning with the ROK ASEAN summit, where the two sides elevated the dialogue relationship to the highest level, a comprehensive strategic partnership.
이러한 최고 단계의 파트너십을 바탕으로 한국과 아세안은 새로운 미래의 역사를 함께 써 나갈 것입니다. 한국은 아세안 중시 외교를 이어가는 가운데 공동 번영의 파트너로서 전방위적이고 포괄적인 협력을 추진해 나가겠습니다.
Today's ASEAN ROK Summit provides an excellent opportunity to change the future course for cultivating the ASEAN ROK Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, which will be officially elevated today, with the goal of enhancing connectivity and resilience for the benefit of the people of ASEAN, ROK and the world.
The two sides adopted a joint statement to detail the enhanced cooperation in various sectors. Most notably, South Korea and ASEAN addressed key security issues, affirming the importance of maintaining peace and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea in line with international law. ASEAN members also backed President Yoon's August 15 Unification Doctrine. Meanwhile, another key event for President Yoon here in Vientiane was the ASEAN Plus 3 summit, which involved South Korea, Japan, and China. Referring to this year's theme of enhancing connectivity and resilience, President Yoon proposed ways to enhance connectivity between the three East Asian nations and ASEAN.
특히 올해의 아세안 정상회의 주제가 연계성과 회복력의 강화인 만큼 대한민국은 역내 자본과 물자 그리고 사람이 더 자유롭게 흐를 수 있도록 연계성을 강화해 나가고자 합니다. 연계성이 제고되면 위기 앞에서 우리의 회복력도 좋아질 것입니다.
Specifically, President Yoon called for more standardized connectivity, including for future industries and civilian exchanges. 김도현, Arirang News, Vientiane.
복합 위기의 시대를
Earlier this morning, South Korea's central bank announced that it would be cutting its benchmark interest rate today for the first time in more than 3 years. For more, we have our Moon Hae-ryun on the line. So Hae-ryun, finally, a rate cut.
That's right, Tammy. The Bank of Korea on Friday slashed its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to 3.25% on Friday. The key rate has been frozen since January 2023 following a series of 10 consecutive rate hikes in a bid to tackle inflation. And this is the first pivot in more than 3 years. The central bank was widely expected to cut its benchmark interest rate following the U.S. Federal Reserve's big rate cut last month, on top of encouraging data on the domestic economy. The country's consumer price index, a key gauge of inflation, had been seeing smaller and smaller year-on-year hikes over the past few months until it rose 1.6% in September, the lowest in 3.5 years. There's only one more monetary policy meeting left this year around the end of November, so the central bank will need to watch the country's continued high household debt levels and low domestic demand to make its final monetary policy decision of 2024. Heightened geopolitical uncertainties in the Middle East causing concern over international oil prices could also be a factor that needs to be considered. That's all I have for now, but I'll bring more updates in a later newscast. Back to you, Tammy.
All right, thanks, Hae-ryun, for that coverage. Now, moving on, over in the U.S., Hurricane Milton left a trail of destruction as it battered the Florida Peninsula on Wednesday night with wind speeds of 195 kilometers per hour and downpours of up to 450 millimeters, leaving at least 10 people dead. Emergency services began search and rescue efforts on Thursday after Milton cut off power to more than 3 million customers, tore the roof off a baseball stadium and homes, and resulted in severe flooding. Hurricane Milton made landfall near Siesta Key, Florida on Wednesday evening as a Category 3 storm, but weakened to a Category 2 storm shortly afterward. And it had weakened to a Category 1 storm by early Thursday. South Korea's men's national football team beat Jordan 2-0 on Thursday, despite captain Son Heung-min's absence due to injury. With the two teams facing off at the Amman International Stadium in the Jordanian capital, South Korea took the lead through the header by a midfielder Lee Jae-sung in the 38th minute, and Oh Hyung-gyu scored his first international goal in the 68th minute, giving the Taeguk Warriors the 2-0 lead and the win. South Korea is currently tied in the first place in Group B with Iraq, and the two countries square off next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Korea time in Yongin Media Stadium.
As the wide gaps in ratings are a typical weather pattern these days, dense fog is causing headaches for morning commuters. And especially those near the water could have lower visibility of less than 200 meters. Drive with care in the mornings. Dense fog will clear out to sunshine by the afternoon with a big jump in highs this afternoon. But aren't we enjoying clear blue skies with good air quality nationwide nowadays? In fact, the capital is seeing the lowest dust level since records started back in 1995 this month so far. So enjoy the fine weather if you can today. Skies will get sunnier as the day goes on with warmer highs this afternoon. But those in certain parts of Jeju Island could see some spotty rain this afternoon. More pleasant autumn weather is in the forecast this weekend and into next week. However, Jeju will see rain throughout next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time.